This is the Xiaomi 15 and wow, this thing is literally insane. Let me explain. It's got the fastest chip on the planet, one of the most stacked camera systems on a compact flagship, which can shoot up to 8K. And somehow it starts at the price of just $700. But the real question is, can it beat the latest iPhone 16? So, welcome to the ultimate smartphone battle of 2025, where we are going to compare Xiaomi's latest against Apple's latest, and find out who has perfected the 6 core pillars of an ideal flagship: design, display, software, performance, camera, and battery. Let's start with the unboxing experience, because even though that is not a core feature, Xiaomi is absolutely flexing here, and that is for two main reasons. Right on top, we get the insert with the usual paperwork and a USB-C cable, but more importantly, a soft-to-touch silicone case. Provided you're gonna buy a high-quality case for your phone anyway, that's like a $10 saving. Next up, of course, we have the phone itself and the charger. Well, at least for some people. This EU variant that I have doesn't include one, but if you're from a different country like in India, Xiaomi does sweeten the deal with a 90-watt charger right in the box. That's like a massive win, but since this video is for global audience, I sadly would be cutting it. And finally, when you peel the phone, you will notice another thing that Apple doesn't give you: a pre-applied screen protector. Now yeah, these things are pretty cheap, but having it already on, that's like one less hassle. And let's be real, Xiaomi's gonna do a much cleaner job applying it than any of us. It is a small thing, but it does make a difference. So just with the core unboxing experience, Xiaomi does sweep the floor clean compared to Apple, and that is 1 point compared to no points. But things start to get really interesting when you pick up both the devices. If we go back around 5 years, Xiaomi's flagship actually had a distinct personality, bold designs that stood out, but now you can really see how much Xiaomi has matured as a brand. Ironically, iPhone colors have started to look more playful this year than Xiaomi. The Xiaomi 15 comes in just black, white, and green. I would say pretty safe choices, but then there's the liquid silver variant, and that is absolutely not for the faint-hearted. It's got this futuristic look and texture that's unlike anything else I've seen. It's almost like Xiaomi made two basic colors, threw in a green as a safe middle ground, and then went straight up to liquid silver. Nothing in between. Both the phones do feel surprisingly similar: matte glass backs that are highly resistant to fingerprints, premium materials like aluminum and toughened glass. But the Xiaomi does have a bit more heft to it. It's slightly larger and noticeably heavier, which makes it borderline comfortable to hold. The iPhone, on the other hand, just feels right, compact, well-balanced, or in one word, effortless. The iPhone also comes with a dedicated action button, which can be assigned to anything. For my case, it launches Shazam to identify music. Then there's also the capture button, which although isn't very helpful in the camera app, but does launch something similar to Google Lens when you press it long enough. So when it comes to in-hand feel as well as thoughtful design and features, this one's a clear win for the iPhone. But then when you turn the phones over, you find yourself looking at two of the best displays out there in the market. Both support Dolby Vision, HDR, HDR10+. Xiaomi's display does have a higher peak brightness than the iPhone, but they look almost identical under very bright sunlight. Both are AMOLED, meaning deep blacks and punchy colors, so picking a winner, not that easy. But then the differences start to show. The iPhone display does go dimmer. It may seem more comfortable late night, but Xiaomi also used DC dimming instead of PWM, which leads to much lesser eye strain when used at low brightness. But Xiaomi doesn't just stop there. Their panel is also smoother with a 120Hz refresh rate, which is adaptive and can tune down to 1 Hz. And when you start factoring in the TÜV Rheinland certifications on this display, it becomes very clear that Xiaomi doesn't just want to make a good display, but they also genuinely care about the eye health of their consumers. And finally, Xiaomi also has this punch hole cutout for the front camera, which is arguably better and less intrusive than the dynamic island on the iPhone. So display-wise, Xiaomi beats the iPhone 16 hands down, tilting the scorecard towards Xiaomi's favor again. Okay, so every year smartphone battles are getting more intense, and this year the software side of things, it's gone nuclear. We're talking 5 years, 6 years, even 7 years of updates being promised left, right, and center. Xiaomi this year has promised 4 years of major updates with 6 years of security updates. Sounds weird coming from Xiaomi, right? Well, peel the surface and things get very interesting. Take the Xiaomi 15 for example. It ships with the 2nd generation of their shiny new HyperOS. And yeah, it looks very familiar. Put it next to an iPhone and you will start noticing the resemblance. But here's the twist, it's not a straight up clone. HyperOS feels like that more playful, customizable cousin of the iOS. Kind of like iOS if it had a personality. But however, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. Ads are everywhere, in a notification shade, in your app folders, and probably one in your dream too. Now, to be fair, most of these things can be disabled from the settings just with a few tweaks, and I'm okay with that. If doing a bit of cleanup lets you buy a flagship for hundreds less, I'll take that. Once you've tidied it up, it actually feels super clean. But then the real question hits, which is better, iOS or HyperOS? Well, in terms of connectivity, Apple has got AirDrop, Xiaomi also has QuickShare. Apple gives you lock screen customizations, and so does Xiaomi. And when it comes to AI, Xiaomi's implementation is not just competitive, it might actually be better. Just look how accurate the AI eraser on the Xiaomi is. One downside though, none of the AI feature on the Xiaomi works online. So it raises questions about how the data is processed and what is their privacy policy. You also do miss out stuff like Genmoji and image generation on the Xiaomi, but you will probably end up using them once on an iPhone. But the real kicker is HyperOS's openness. I've developed my own finance app, and on Android it just works. I sideload it, update it, manage it, all good. On iPhone, not only is it painful to install, the thing literally stops working after a few days. It's like I have paid for the smartphone, but Apple will decide in the end what I install and how I use it. For me, that's just a deal breaker. I can't switch to the iPhone fully. There will always have to be an Android in my pocket. But credit where it is due, one thing that I love about the iPhone is continuity. Start writing a script or a document, you can pick it up instantly on your Mac. It is seamless, it is smooth, it's Apple at its best. But even that I'm solving. I have been working on my own implementation of continuity, that is Crosslink, to bridge Android and Linux. So soon I will be able to start a task on my phone and pick it up on my desktop. So no ecosystem lock-in is required here too. So for me, HyperOS just wins this round. Okay, now comes the most anticipated section of the video, that is the performance. And since this is a big chunk, I'm going to divide it into 3 parts: speed, memory, and benchmarks. Starting with raw speed, I chained up a couple of clips together, amounting to around 10 minutes of video in VN and hit export. Initially, it seemed like that the iPhone would win because for the first few seconds, Xiaomi did not even budge. And this isn't just a one-time thing, happens whenever you export. But then it picks up and surprisingly crosses the iPhone. One thing though, in all of my tests, I found the final export file size to be smaller on the iPhone compared to that on the Xiaomi. Although the clips are the same, shot on the same camera, my Sony mirrorless. I did some light gaming too, but the difference isn't much noticeable there. But for a more comprehensive outlook, we are going to unzip 4.5 gigabytes of data to get a combined idea of RAM, CPU, and storage speed. Xiaomi aces ahead here too, which is even more shocking considering the fact that the zip was created on macOS, combining images and videos shot on the iPhone. After all, it is a zip file, so definitely no huge optimizations specific to the operating system, but the time difference is insane anyway. And hence, raw performance-wise, Xiaomi is much better. Okay, next is the memory management test. On paper, it seems like the iPhone has no chance here. The Xiaomi has got 4 GBs of extra RAM, which is further expanded by 6 GBs of additional RAM, whatever that is. I did a quick testing by launching the same apps on both the devices, which includes a bunch of third-party apps as well as system apps like a random page in Notes, Settings, Calculator, and more. And I also did some heavy foreground work, which is gaming, and then paused and tried accessing the previously opened apps. And this is where things get interesting. Xiaomi is surprisingly efficient. In the quick test, you won't find a single app on the Xiaomi reloading. And the same goes for the iPhone. But in more complex scenarios, the Xiaomi lags behind by just a tiny bit. In very isolated scenes, you will find apps to reload on Xiaomi. But that is rare and quite negligible. So it's more like a draw over here. Okay, finally, the benchmarks. In Geekbench, single core, Apple significantly outranks the Xiaomi, but Xiaomi still stays ahead in multi-core. In GPU benchmark, Xiaomi scores close to 3,000 points less than the Apple with Vulkan. So all in all, Apple is still ahead in benchmark scores. And hence, it's 1 point each. Fair fight. Alright, now let's talk about the cameras. And trust me, this one's huge. But since I've already got a full camera comparison video in the pipeline, we'll keep it brief over here. I took the Xiaomi 15 on a dedicated trip just for a camera review. Spent a few days doing nothing but shooting photos, videos, landscapes, low light, you name it. And here's what I found. iPhone photos are sharper. They have better HDR, and the colors, honestly, they're so natural that they feel like screenshots of the reality. In comparison, Xiaomi leans heavily on the Leica-inspired look. Lots of contrast, lots of drama. It's almost like it's trying to apply a lot to every image, which would be fine if you could remove it, but it is baked in, and that's a deal breaker for me. But zoom is where Xiaomi pulls ahead, thanks to its dedicated telephoto camera. It wipes the flow with the iPhone when you zoom in. Even in low light, iPhone tends to lose sharpness and struggles with focus. Xiaomi, however, stays sharp and clean, and it doesn't matter even if you shoot under moonlight. But then you hit the ultra-wide camera, and it's a bit of a mess on the Xiaomi. Fixed focus plus f2.2 aperture equals blurry close-up subjects. iPhone handles that far better. On the video fronts, it's neck to neck until the lighting drops. The iPhone keeps color, exposure, and lens consistency even in low light. Xiaomi, not so much. But however, Xiaomi does have some flex points. One, it has OIS on all 3 lenses, and that also extends to 8K video, and also the fact that it can shoot in 8K. More on that later. Dolby Vision at 4K 60 across all cameras, which iPhone also does by the way. 10-bit color, lock profile, pro level control, but honestly, the 8K video doesn't really look better than 4K. It's more about spec sheets than the real world gains. The front camera is capped at 4K 30 for Dolby Vision, which on the iPhone can go up to 4K 60 FPS. So yes, Xiaomi brings a lot of features, but as we all know, features don't always translate to results. And after all that field testing, here's my verdict. The iPhone takes the win in the camera department, but for all that gritty details and side-by-side, stay tuned for the full camera comparison. It is coming very soon. Okay, last but not the least is the battery. If you look at the spec sheet and just focus on raw numbers, the iPhone sure does look like having no chance. It is literally like comparing 2 different generations of smartphones. But on testing, you will find the results to be very strange. In almost all average readings between the 2 phones, there is only a hair much of a difference. The Xiaomi does very often outlive the iPhone battery, but the margin is low and sometimes even the same. And that is primarily because of the insane level of optimization on the iPhone. But that does not mean Xiaomi is not at all optimized in the battery department, because when you look at the charging speeds, Xiaomi actually emerges as the winner. It also has much better thermal performance compared to that of the iPhone, which is more aggressive at lower levels and heats up while slowing down considerably after hitting around 75. Xiaomi on the other hand stays negligibly warm for the entire process, and I use their own brand respective chargers, so this is as good as it gets. So Xiaomi wins in the battery department, and this also brings us to the end of the test, where Xiaomi emerges as the final winner. So that brings us to the end of the video. There are a lot of more videos planned in the future, so do stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Do like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.